Is anyone else feeling this amazing March energy? I'm really loving this. All right, let me make sure I can find the live. Here we go. So whenever you join me, please just put a hashtag replay if you're watching this later. And then if you're joining now, say hi, put an emoji in the chat so that I know that you're here. Make sure it looks like it will be. I'm just checking the technology, like make sure I have sound, make sure it's actually streaming, these fun things. Okay, I see myself. Make sure I have sound. Haha, all right, I'm only lagging a little. That's awesome. All right, so most of you know I am a divine feminine mastery coach, and I guide women into their potential as embodied divine feminine leaders in their relationships, their sexuality, and their business, whatever that is, as a healer or a leader. And I do that through coaching, dynamic groups, spiritual ascension journey, and a shamanic descending journey. Right, so pretty cool. It's all the stuff. It's Ayurveda. It's, yoga. It's divine feminine ancient practices. So, and I'm excited because spring cleanse is coming. Spring cleanse. I love cleansing because every year it gets easier and more fun and I feel better. And my habits, you guys know I used to smoke. I used to smoke cigarettes, right? And these habits, oh, it's just too silly. I'll have to say that for afterwards. But these habits have like slowly, they release when they're ready. Bad habits, less than ideal habits. So I love the cleanse and focusing every fall and spring on these 3 weeks of how do I nourish myself? How do I need to nourish myself now in this season of life and year? So anyway, I'm excited about that. That's not really, wasn't really supposed to be part of this live, but yes, cleansing with me. It's the easiest, most accessible way to hang out and evolve spiritually while cleansing. Okay, so today we're doing the prostitution wound of the soul and how it is holding you back and slowing your spiritual ascension. This is a big deal. This is really huge stuff. So hopefully it won't be too mystical or esoteric, and I can take you along the way with me. There is a little bit of a trigger warning. So when we talk about the prostitution wound in general, like that is the darkest of all the wounds, I feel, because if you've ever found yourself in a situation where you felt forced to do something that you didn't want to do, that it can, thinking about, talking about, reviewing the prostitution wound can be triggering. So proceed with caution. If this has been your experience and you're not ready to heal it, transmute it, change it, and you feel the prostitution wound, maybe come back to this later. Okay, that being said, the prostitution wound is a man is not a money plan. A man is not a money plan. A man is not a money plan. Okay, so what happens is, especially women, I think millennials and older, were very much raised in this mindset. A lot, not all, but a lot of women were raised with, you can make babies. You have the power to make babies, right? So you're going to find a man who will pay for your home and your nest so that you can make your babies. Doesn't seem so bad. However, what that does is it kind of brings us into this mindset of, if a man is giving or providing or doing things that, like, we might feel like we need to give something back, like our body, right? This is the prostitution wound. So what happens often is women do all these things, right? And then they get divorced and then they're left with nothing and they're homeless. Getting divorced is one of the main reasons why women are homeless on the streets, which is pretty interesting. Or you feel stuck. I know women currently now that have this, where they feel stuck. Let me just double check I'm not missing any comments or, okay, perfect. Just let me know. Say hi if you're here, hashtag replay if you're watching later, and please ask any questions. And I would love to know now if anyone feels like, yeah, prostitution wound, because we talked about this a little bit on the last masterclass. It's very real. So yeah, a lot of women that feel stuck. I've been that woman where it was like, oh, this person is being emotionally abusive. I need to go. I don't have any money, right? Which is actually what brought me into this coaching space, was how do I make money doing what I love, helping others, and still be in a space where I can spend time with my son or maybe live somewhere different. So prostitution, what does it really look like if you are not financially independent? Luckily, not all women are financially dependent. Thank the universe. However, there's a bunch of us that have been or are, and it really stops you from feeling free, from feeling like you have options, from feeling like you can really embody your divine feminine power. It's not a good place to be in. Like I said, a lot of women end up homeless. So put in the chat if you've experienced any type of this wounding in any level. I definitely have. And then think about how many women you know, or that, yeah, women that you know or that you've seen that it seems like they're less than happy or content, but because they're in this relationship with this man that they've been in a long time, even though he's not like fulfilling their needs or desires, or even sometimes making an effort, but they're paying for everything. So the woman is just like, well, that's fine. He's paying for it, so I'm going to just deal with it. And that's fine if that's fine for you. That was not fine for me. And so I really feel for women that feel stuck because of this prostitution wound or finances. And then another interesting thing about this, I think it's interesting because I know like a bunch of women, I don't know what they be, baby boomers maybe, but more seasoned women who either feel stuck, they seem unhappy, or have left and had to figure out life all over again, like a new career or whatever. And in America specifically, but it's women 45 to 84, like the number one cause of death is heart disease. And if you're in this group, you probably know mind, body, and spirit are connected. And if you have heart disease, what does that really mean emotionally and spiritually? All right, so if you're okay with the prostitution wound, let's say that you're like, well, it's okay because he's paying for everything and I've had this nice life and we've had this nice marriage, and then you get heart disease and die. I mean, like, it's not denying our spirit and our soul of our desires or connection is not a game, like not a game plan for winning. That is not a good choice for our souls. Okay, so I hope this is making sense. This is kind of the setup to get into the deep mystical spiritual stuff. So in closing with this preface, I guess, prostitution is men always paying for everything. You don't feel like you have freedom. You're not putting yourself first. Usually you're putting like children or money or partner or other responsibilities in front of like what your desires are. And so men paying for things and you feel like you have to give something in return or stay, or you feel stuck. And I feel like it's interesting with the divine feminine rising and people are in partnerships. And then all of a sudden, right, women are taking up more space in their relationship. And what I have found personally taking up more space is I'm like, hey, I'm going to take up this much space. And the men in my life are like, okay, you can have that space. And I'm like, thank you for that space. Wow, that was not difficult. And it's really an interesting thing. It's just me saying yes to me. It's just you saying yes to you and being like, actually, I need this much space, or actually, I need this. And being able to identify our needs and speak them, this is starting, then we start to embody the divine feminine and taking up more space. So in the chat, I'd love to know, how does the divine feminine nurture her partner as she's evolving? I would love to hear from you all what you think. The divine feminine archetype, the embodied divine feminine, how is she nurturing? How is she, right? Because divine feminine is nurturing, creative, intuitive, is feeling. We're not, when we're thinking, we are not in our power. It's not that we can't think. We can think very well. I'm very thorough, analytical type of thinker. Like I can think just great. And if I'm sourcing my decisions from my brain and my mind, I'm not in divine feminine because I feel and I know, right? And that's the divine feminine. So as I feel and I know more and I feel and I know and I take up more space and I'm walking this divine feminine path, right? So you're walking this path. How do you bring your partners with you? How do you bring your partner with you, your husband, your boyfriend, your family even, right? Anyone in these core relationships. This is something that I've mastered and am mastering, is this invitation to grow and evolve with me, right? I don't want to be alone, quote at the top. Like that's not fun, right? I want all these beautiful relationships and soul buddies to come with me. So how do we nurture? So that was one question. And then how do you take up more space and invite your partner to grow with you, right? That's the question. How do we nurture the relationships? How do we bring people with us? Because a lot of times it feels like, one person grows and then the other person grows. And sometimes it's not always a cohesive union of growth, right? Sometimes it's a little, right? So we want to take each other with us. Okay, so it's a lot. Have I noticed a lot of women healers and leaders who are coming back more into being like, quote, selfish in this life? Like, are some of our soul contracts, especially if you're like a priestess, healer, leader type of woman, is like part of your soul needs to take up that space now. Like part of your soul needs you to be more selfish and to really tap into your womb and your sexuality and your passion and your purpose and your desires, because the divine feminine rising, that energy rising, which is rising in all of us collectively, men and women, is more nurturing, more collaborative, more communicative, and nurtures yourself. And it pours out to everyone else. And if everyone's nurturing themselves, pouring it out, new humanity is birthed, right? And we're in this right now. We're witnessing this happening. This is ascension, right? We're ascending. So taking up more space and being selfish and saying yes to you and knowing like, okay, I need to say yes to these desires. I need to move forward with the way that I'm feeling. And it's hard with the rational mind and the 3D reality. It can get very tricky being in a spiritual space and awareness and experience, and then people around you not. So sometimes it's hard, but I think it's really interesting to ask yourself. It's another question, put in the chat. Am I being called to be more righteously selfish or purely selfish, or like the most holy version? It's not selfishness. Selfishness isn't really the right word because it's not really that, but kind of is. It's a good word to use so that you understand that it's about turning the focus into you and what are your desires and what is your unique story, right? So we're going to get into the spiritual stuff. I'm so excited to share this. So we release now perpetuating toxic programming of the prostitution wound. We are not telling our daughters they need to make babies. We release that, right? We're not telling our women in our life or perpetuating any stories around a man is doing X, so a woman needs to do this. We're releasing all of that that's toxic and outdated and not helping. Okay, so we must embrace and live our own story. So I want to share a little bit with you now from this book, Return to Eros, which I highly recommend. It has given me words to explain my journey, which is helpful, can be helpful, especially as the journey gets less and less like words are necessary. Okay. So sex is most potent when it is part of a larger story. The degree of your aliveness is always connected with the degree to which you embrace and live your story. I want to have in the chat. Are you living your story? Does it feel like you're living your authentic soul story? Yes? No? Maybe? Not sure. Put it in the chat. I mean, this is part of us. This is great. If I can help you discover if you're living your story or not and help you live it, like, beautiful. Let's do this. Like, yes, I'm all about it. Okay. There is no Eros. So in this book, Eros is kind of like this. It's well, it's hard to explain, but it's outrageous love. It's not like outrageous, unconditional love. The love that is yearning to merge, to evolve, to grow. It's like the plant's desire to grow. It's the lover's desire to be one, right? It's the evolutionary pulsation of life is this Eros. It's the desire or the yearning before, right? The merge. Eros. I mean, I think that's an okay way of explaining it. It's a hard, they spend I think the first 2 chapters explaining Eros. So there is no Eros more satisfying or fulfilling than the Eros of living your story. You can only fill the void of emptiness with the stuff of your own sacred tale. Not new cars, not new houses, not new relationships. Nope. You can only fill the void of emptiness with your own sacred story. To fully understand the de-storying of life, which expresses itself in the prostitute archetype in all of our lives, we must first reconnect to what it means to live one story, which I'll talk about. But it's important to notice. So here we're going to talk about the prostitution wound of the soul, which I came up with that term based on what I was reading. But the prostitute archetype is, right, selling yourself short. It's giving away your body, but not kissing the person. It's not allowing yourself, you're not allowing Eros if you're the prostitute. You're like, well, here's my body, but my spirit and my soul and that connection, that deep, and the stuff that you actually want that's going to fulfill or fill the emptiness that I'm not giving you, right? That's kind of this prostitution archetype. It's the de-storying of life. When you lose your story, you lose access to your own radical aliveness. Not what Neve's about. Neve is about radical aliveness, okay? To live your story is to be able to hear the intimate whisper of divinity erotically caressing your life, which feels amazing. Okay. So what we're understanding here is to really, get to enlightenment in this version of it, to be fully alive, to fill the void of emptiness. We have to live our unique story. And the classic expression of the de-storing of intimacy is the archetypal refusal of the prostitute to kiss, right? That's what I was talking about. I'm not going to go there. I'm not really going to be in the story. I'm going to de-story my life. This is kind of when we numb out, right? If we watch too much TV or we eat too much food, or we're even just alcohol, marijuana, nicotine, anything, sugar, caffeine, too much of anything can numb us out. Too much, being an addict of anything, right, can numb us out from this true soul purpose and story. Okay. So what else did I want to read to you? So we got this. The only method must be the method of an unguarded heart, the way of outrageous love. We need a new sexual narrative in which the potent relationship between the holy trinity of sex, eros, and love are clearly articulated. So it's like, having sex with someone and not having a story with them, then you're de-eroticizing your life. You're making your life and your sex inauthentic and non-erotic, essentially. So they go into this to talk about the story of Leah in the Bible. So, you might not know, but the story is there is Jacob, and Jacob falls in love with Rachel, and he wants to marry Rachel, and he is deceived by his newly father-in-law and his bride, actually, and whatever, her sister. And he marries the older sister. He doesn't know. He sleeps with her, right? They have a baby, they're married, and he feels betrayed. And in that story, it goes on, but basically at certain points, he's the prostitute, Leah's the prostitute. They're not, at times, not living their authentic story, right? The authentic, unique story is Jacob and Rachel feeling the eros, right? And wanting to be together. And so in this story, they become the prostitute archetype, if you will. Because they're not really living their authentic story, or they're even lying and trading out who's sleeping with who. So it's an interesting thing, but voice, let me make sure I don't miss anything. Oh yes, 267. I wanted to read a little bit of this. Okay, a humiliated but not innocent Jacob, for the second time, is made to sleep with Leah instead of Rachel. On that tragic night, Jacob becomes a prostitute. But not only Jacob, Leah goes out to greet Jacob. And the wisdom masters observe that she was a whore that night. So saying that she went out is saying that she went out of her unique, authentic story, which is interesting. I find it very interesting. So voice is our full emotional range of our ability to fully express, fully present and expressive of our feelings. If the free flow of my story is blocked in the world, then I do not have a voice. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So not only do we want to live our unique story and express it, we have to have this connection with our voice. In the ancient divine feminine mastery path, voice is connected to womb. So here we go again, sex and womb and voice all coming into play. Sex is the place where you give voice to your truest self. Think about how raw and vulnerable sex is, right? Eros is the profoundest sense, is about giving voice to our deepest desires, which need to be the ultimate guides in our story. My true voice speaks my deepest desires, which is my soul print, soul mission, soul desire, soul story. Okay, so you're following me here. So this is your desires are your guides to your voice and your story. And to find your voice is to live your story. To live your story is to be free. Freedom, voice, and story are at the heart of Eros and love. Yeah. I think this is so amazing. So, it goes on and then talks about like any human being who's lost the courage to speak her unique story is a slave, and talks about how for the Hebrew mystics, Moses is a mythic archetype of anyone who attains full voice and participates in it is the Moses archetype. So then something higher is speaking through them, which I also like that. So we have this prostitution archetype, and then I've never thought of a voice unleashing as a Moses archetype. So I kind of like that because he kind of stuttered and he didn't have a strong voice, and it was spirit speaking through him to Pharaoh that allowed the slaves to leave Israel, as the story goes in the Bible, or leave Egypt and become Israel. But yeah, so it's an interesting thing to me, how voice is so connected to your unique story and desires. And in the Bible, it does say the Lord will grant you the desires of your heart. I have found that experience, the truth of that is your higher self, your soul, and the divine placed the desires in your heart for this life. And you living them is living your unique story. You speaking and your desires and fulfilling them is your unique story. And in the more you dig down in yourself, one of those desires is to love and serve all in some unique way. So if any of that interests you, if you'd like to have a conversation with me about your unique story, your voice, your desires, I would be honored. I would love to hold a sacred space and we can chat about it, because this is the path of divine feminine. This is living the mysteries. This is humanity ascending. And it's magical and it's beautiful. It's powerful and it's very difficult to do alone, because there's so much inner healing work that has to happen to embody the divine feminine and really be free, to be in faith and trust and surrender and freedom, and to live the life of your dreams. I'm living the life of my dreams right now. It's such a gift, and it has been such a journey, so much work to get here. So if I can help you be in this similar space, I would be honored. So I love you all. Let me know if you want to chat. I put the link to my calendar in here, and also comment. Let me know if you want to cleanse, because cleansing time, we're going to start March 18th officially and go to April 8th. There's 5 calls and a whole course that you can do on your own about Ayurveda and cleansing and spirituality, right? Because can't take the spiritual out of the Neve, can't take the spirit out of any of us, which is the cool part. Okay, I love you all. It's been such a joy and honor and privilege to be here. Please let me know what resonated, what didn't make sense. It's kind of hard to take, like, I mean, I'm pretty far into this book, like, and to take these mystical Hebrew mystics ideas of life and like break them down and share them. So hopefully it made a little bit of sense, and let me know if it didn't make any. I'll try again later and do a better job. I'll evolve. But it speaks to my soul. So I hope that you, I trust that you enjoyed it and it touched your heart. All right. Love you. Have a beautiful March, first day of March day, Wednesday. And I'll see you soon.